Servus, welcome to another episode of Pro Hockey Pod, episode 68. This week we got a big guest on. I'm very happy to have him on. That he had some time to stop by this week. Someone that I played against when I was in college. He was coaching at RIT then. I was at Niagara, and this guy's resume speaks for itself. He's been in the game for a long time, going into his 41st season in coaching, and that was after winning a national championship in his playing career at Bowling Green State. Happy to have him on this week. Welcome to the podcast, Wayne Wilson.
Thanks so much for having me, Andrew. Appreciate it.
As you mentioned before, we're kind of in a half an hour window here, so I'm gonna buzz through this a little quicker than normal. But I believe you were born in Montreal, Quebec, or in the area there. Like, what's kind of your first childhood memory of growing up there?
Yeah, really, so played all my youth hockey there. And really my biggest memories were playing right outside my door. I could put the skate guards on, walk across the street. There was three rinks outside, regulation rinks, chicken wire at the ends, and boxes, I guess for team boxes. And a big kind of a fourth rink, which was kind of a figure skating rink, not with boards or anything, but just going out there and playing just about every day. As soon as the weather got cold enough, you're out there to, I guess, complement. I think at that time I started off with like one practice, one game a week type of thing, and a lot of great memories of just going outside playing hockey and. Something that's probably a little bit lost without everything has to be kind of parental drills and structure and all that. It was just fun going out there to play, and depending on your level of play, what rink you were designated to. If you weren't good enough for one rink, they shot you down to another one, and so on. So it was a good time.
Did you have a kind of favorite player growing up that you kind of like idolize and try to model your game after? And I also would assume, being born in Quebec, you were a Canadians, a Habs fan. I would have to
Well,
say, or
that's where you were wrong.
uh-oh.
So my player kind of designated the team, and it was Bobby Orr. So I was born in '61, and he came in the late '60s there with the Bruins, and obviously as a defenseman, just it was new, it was exciting. He was just an incredible player, and that was my idol, and so I was a Bruins fan. So that didn't go over real well in Montreal at that particular time because it seemed like they were going head to head, but it made for great watch too. Like, just all those and Montreal outstanding. I remember the Robinson, Laperriere, Lapointe, JC Tremblay, all these guys that maybe some of your listeners don't know because it's that long ago, but great defensemen and great teams and exciting hockey and great rivalries. So it was all good.
Yeah, it would have been very entertaining to watch those games back then, I'm sure. As I mentioned before, you end up going the NCAA route to Bowling Green State University, but I had a question for you kind of before that. Was there any thought of going the major junior route? Like, as you know, in Canada, like that's normally the first kind of route that's kind of presented to us, like the major junior or the COHL or Q or W. But did you have any thoughts of that route, or you always kind of
Well,
had your foot on
that,
school?
that is a good question. Particularly living in Quebec, we didn't have, I guess, quite the exposure to college hockey that maybe even Ontario did as in Canada, anyways. But I would say that so my dad was from Scotland, so we were both English speaking. Lived in the English speaking, it's dollar days or more, but English speaking section of West Island, and but my dad was working with Johnson & Johnson, got transferred to Guelph, Ontario, where they had a Tylenol plant, and just as I was entering junior. So that kind of eliminated that. But there was two players, a guy named Peter Shire who played in my area, played for Pierrefonds, and he went to Cornell, and I was an outstanding defenseman. And John Bethel, another player that ended up going to BU. So those were two guys that really kind of influenced me or showed that there was a path at that time from Quebec to the NCAA, and then moving to Guelph, not realizing that Guelph at that time had a very, very strong Tier 2 program. They just came off winning the Centennial Cup at that time, and two players that ended up going to Bowling Green and influenced me were George McPhee and Brian McClellan. George is the president of Vegas, and Brian actually now is president of Washington. Both of them were former GMs, but we're BG guys. So I got to play in Guelph. My first year, we lost in the finals of the Centennial Cup to Prince Albert, and who was also Tier 2 at that time. It's funny, all these teams are in the O or the WHL now, but yeah. So I was just very fortunate that I was always able to live at home. I didn't have to bill it anywhere or anything like that. And so I had 2 years at Guelph before selecting Bowling Green, and had a great experience there too.
That you did. Just to talk about kind of your Bowling Green career. 4 very solid years there for yourself. As you mentioned, there was some elite names that went there and obviously went on to have careers in hockey afterwards. I noticed too, Gary Galley, for example, was there. John Szymanski, his sons actually play in Germany right now, so I
Yeah,
kind of know his sons a little bit from scouting
just
them.
spoke to him last week. Kim Collins, that was over there, just unfortunately passed away just suddenly here. But anyways, yeah, I don't know, a lot of influences.
And then I also know George Roll, who is also a very long time NCAA coach. He was at Oswego, where I eventually went to. Obviously, influenced the coach there now at Gosick. But
Yeah.
when I talk about your college career, obviously, I think you get to do something that a lot of people, it's a storybook ending to the career, and your last year, you're the captain of the team, and you win the national championship. Maybe just talk about that season and how awesome it was to go out on a winning note.
Yeah, so decided to go to Bowling Green. They had come off a lot of success. They just the first year there in 1980 was Ken Morrow and Wells were two Olympians as well for the U.S. that won. So there's just a lot of factors. It was close to home. They had the major I was interested in, and the first year didn't go as well as I guess the others, but the others were kind of exceptional in that we won the regular season 3 years in a row. Went to the NCAA starting my sophomore year, and I think the biggest factor my senior year in winning a national championship was the heartbreak of being number one in the country for a lot of the year, my junior year, and losing in overtime in our league championship. Back then, there was only 8 teams going to the NCAAs, so it was at that time was basically there was only the 4 leagues, 2 teams from each league. But that year they snubbed us. It was still the whoever won the playoffs went on. So Michigan State went on that particular year, but we got snubbed. Minnesota Duluth got I think they finished third or somewhere in that in the WCHA and got the bid, and BU the AD there at the time was one of the people to vote us out and put in Duluth. And so our senior year was kind of redemption. We ended up playing BU in the quarterfinals, and at that time it was best total goals, and we lost by 3. So the next night we had to win by 4 to advance, and we won regulation in 3, and then won it in overtime to advance. And then we got to play Michigan State, who put us out the year before, and then we got to play Minnesota Duluth that got the bid before. So a little bit of it was, I guess, foreshadowing a little bit, but I think we felt we had a really strong team and were capable the year before, but it really gave us extra motivation for our my senior year, anyways. And unfortunate for the seniors prior to that they didn't get the opportunity I think they deserved.
When you end your college career on a winning note like that, was there ever thought for yourself of maybe trying pro, or had you already kind of decided
No,
on I want to
no,
get into coaching?
absolutely. I had some opportunities to play in what would have been the old I Fort Wayne, but a team from Sweden was very interested, and I thought maybe that would be the route that I'd like to go and explore maybe overseas a little bit. And then it was early August and that's typical when a lot of players go over there, that all of a sudden they pulled the plug and ended up taking an American League defenseman. And I'd had conversations there. Actually, they talked to me after the NCAA, our Final Four, and that's when the conversations were initiated. And called my coach, Jerry York. I said, "Listen, this is my situation now. What do you think?" And the first thing he said was, "What do you think about joining us as a graduate assistant?" And I really hadn't given that any thought at all. but I was kind of under the gun. What do I want to do? And my agent probably could have wrestled up something at somewhere, hopefully, that. But I don't know why I decided, but I decided to go back, and I guess some regrets a little bit in that I think that's how your playing career ended. I guess it would have been easier if I knew back after we won that I wanted to get into coaching right away, but I don't think I was ready for that. But it kind of forced my hand, and then I just really enjoyed the experience of coaching, and at that time your GA could go out and do recruiting, and so I was involved with everything, and just got my schooling paid for, which was really grateful, but for no money. And so I did that for a year, and then I was kind of a part-time guy. I think I got $5,000. So you're working a lot of summer camps to try and make up some of that ground. And before I got my first job at UNH, which ironically we're going to play this weekend. But anyways, that's how I got into it and learned from the ground up. And that the GA program's not around anymore, but it's too bad because it is a great opportunity, and I think a lot of schools would benefit from hiring specifically alums, but others, Miami of Ohio and Maine had great grad programs that they recruited for future coaches, and a lot of good ones have come from that. But that's how I got started with it all.
I've had a couple guests on who've done what you did, kind of were the graduate assistant after playing, and I have a lot of respect for them because, as you mentioned, like you're getting your school paid for, which is great, but you still need money to live your life, and obviously there's not much that comes with it or very limited. And as you said, you had to work the summer camps, everything like that. But in the end, it was obviously worth it. And I wanted to ask you, how was it for those 3 years there at Bowling Green working with the legendary Jerry York? Like anyone who knows NCAA, you know his name.
Yeah, it's well, it was first of all great, and it's always interesting, and but I like the fact you work from the ground up. Like I think you do have to pay your dues. But a lot of other leagues have afforded people the USHL with the emergence of that and how strong a league that is. There's a lot of good coaches in that league that can make the transition into coaching. But before there was no transitional period, how do you get into it without them just flat out hiring you, which is a big risk for teams back at that point. But working with Jerry, I thought it was great. Just a lot of different things. Then you start to learn a little bit of the reasoning behind the decisions when, as a player, you just knew what the decisions were and you went with it. And that so, but I think just how he treats people, just in general, and uh, you learned a lot. You learned a lot about being positive through tough times. Uh, Learned life lessons off the ice that did translate on the ice. Not being selfish. Just there's just a lot of different things that he would teach you that you were able to apply to coaching or to playing in the game, and that were besides the X's and O's. And I think everyone, even in today's with the video and everything that goes on, there's so much. There's not a lot of secrets out there. But it is, how patient do you be with things? How after tough losses or sequences, what type of coach do you want to be known for? You hear about bag skates and all that, or are you going to try and fix the problem? And when you go through those times, I think you'll learn a lot. And so I learned a lot from him in regard to that, and learned a lot even with some of the great players that I was able to be associated with that Jerry put together and letting them play at times. I think sometimes now even with all the structure and video we have, it's so structured. We've kind of coach the creativity out of the game when sometimes you've just got to let good players play. I don't know how many times I've been on the bench where I'm going, no, 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 oh, great play. Like someone goes off script and they've just because they see it, because they're good, they have good minds. Sometimes you just have to let those people play and give them leeway um, and then others may need more structure because they're playing outside of maybe their abilities or trying to do too much or trying to emulate some of the top players, and you've got to put a little bit more structure in. So um, I guess you have to treat everyone the same as people, but as players, I think you've got to set limitations or take some of the restraining things off of players to let them play as well.
That is one of the unique parts of coaching, I would say, is finding those players, finding the balance. And as you mentioned, not every player is the same, so you can't coach 21 guys the same way. Some guys might need some more leeway, some guys might need some more structure. You definitely see that in all levels of hockey. One thing I thought was cool about your career too is, you were at the start, you were very Bowling Green everything, right? Like you played 4 years there, and then I think 14 your first 15 years coaching were at Bowling Green, obviously biding your time, being patient, as you said. Um, After being assistant coach there for 11 seasons, you end up taking the job where you are now at RIT, except when you took the job back then, they were still a D3 program. What kind of enticed you to take that job, and how was the program maybe different then than it is to now?
Well, a great question, and I can reflect. And I don't know what year it was working for Jerry that, having played for him and having worked for him long, I wanted then to become a head coach. And I explored, I remember I got interviewed for Columbus back in the East Coast League. And really great conversation with the GM there at the time. I'm just trying to think what his name was now. But anyways, but he also gave me a pretty good dose of reality that, contractually and things like that, it's probably only going to be a 3-year contract. And I'm asking, well, what if you do a real good job? I said, well, if you do a good job, you're moving up, and if you do a good job, you're moving out. And I didn't realize with a wife and a young family that that's pro-life. So if you decide to go that route, um, you could be doing a lot of moving for good things or bad things. There is never going to be stagnant where you could set up roots and, hey, I'm going to be a head coach for this team for a long time and professional. I think it's one way or the other. And so, but I was open to Division 3. Buddy Powers, one of the assistants at Bowling Green, had coached at RIT for 1 year before he took the RPI job, and said it was a real good situation. The school was very supportive of the hockey program, and it didn't really matter to me whether Division 1 or Division 3. I wanted the opportunity to coach. I still think that even to this day that coaching is coaching. There's different levels of players and things like that, but um, it's the same. And I like the fact that I was able to coach Division 3 and also coach a group of players that wanted to win as much as any other team, as much as our national championship team. They were committed to hockey. They loved hockey, and that was the best part of their day. And I just loved being around because I think my first reaction to going to Division 3 was, are these guys going to be right into the books? And hockey is something they like, but this is going to be, and it might have been the opposite. They loved hockey way more than they liked the school, but they also understood that the education was going to be important for their future lives. But um, so it was great. And in Division 3, besides being head coach, you're almost assistant coach, you're equipment manager, you're fundraiser, you name it. I was rink manager as well, so all that. So, but your the teams you coach were really truly yours, and the players were great, and I just enjoyed the whole experience, and then I was lucky enough that as time went on, I'm trying to think how many years, but maybe 5, 6, we went to Division 1. Then after that, we got a rink, and then just like I said, 2 years ago, we got scholarships. So just RIT is just maybe not moving as fast as I thought, but has moved forward a lot. And I thought it was going to be a 2 or 3. If I do a real good job there, I'd move up to Division 1, but they took care of all that for me, and I didn't have to move.
You've obviously had such an impact there, just given your career and your statistics. But like a couple of things that came up to me right away is in your second year, you won Coach of the Year in D3, which is obviously a tremendous feat. Second year being a head coach, and then as you mentioned, I believe it was the 05-06 season, you guys get promoted to Division 1, which is obviously was a great step for your program. And then a couple of years later, you win the D1 Coach of the Year. You guys make your Final Four appearance, Frozen Four appearance, excuse me. And like if you look at the timeline of that, like you've been at the program for almost 10 years, 9 years, and go from D3 to the Frozen Four and D1, like that must have been quite a whirlwind, quite a journey for you in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, really, when I look back on things, probably my biggest disappointments, one as a player, was not getting a bid my junior year, but this one that's right there with it is the year we were undefeated, and then we lost to Plattsburgh in the national championship game, which we hosted. That's what in Division Three there you played at the highest seed team, and that was probably one of the lowest moments at that. But obviously a great year and a great group of players that were very very driven, and yeah, so a disappointing ending to that, and then winning a national championship in a player, but going to a Frozen Four of a program that we weren't giving scholarships. And I guess all the new rules are going to take care of things like that now, where those programs are going to, they don't make it easy, that's for sure. Going to be tough. But yeah, just a great group of guys that got us to the Frozen Four again. And I, had to pinch myself a number of times as we were going on that ride. Because every year, regardless of wins and losses, it's always tough. Like you take your wins for granted at the end of the year when you have a really good record, but when you look back at them, you don't realize how many one goal games you were in that could have gone either way, that went your way, that it accumulates into a great record. And the same thing when you have a struggling year, is that how many one goal games you're in, and that you're right there, but you just didn't get over the hump, that you're not far off either. So a lot of ups and downs, but yeah, the coach of the year thing was just in Division One. There's a lot more people that you've got to be thankful for that really make it happen. Your assistants, Dave Insalacco and Brian Hills, for me here, have been with me for seems forever, and they've done unbelievable job. And then just your strength coaches and all the different coaches that you have, trainers and equipment people, are all a big part of that culture and helping you get where you want to get. Division 3 was a little bit more skeleton. It was me and my part-time assistants that could make it after work, but their passion for the game was equal to anyone else's. They just didn't get rewarded financially or positionally with it in Division 3, but their commitment was just as strong.
As I mentioned to you off camera, I obviously went to Niagara University for about a year and a half and had the pleasure of not playing but sitting on the bench a couple times in games in RIT. And I have to say, like for that division for Atlantic hockey, that was probably the best atmosphere that I got to play in. Obviously, when we would play out of conference games, like Union, RPI, whatever, like they had the college atmosphere. But for that division, I really felt that every time you went to RIT, it was a loud barn. They were on top of you, and as a coach, you must like appreciate the fan support because those are obviously locals and also students coming out to all these games to support you.
Yeah, I think our corner crew, which is our student body, and our pep band, those two really bring the rink to life. And then we fell in with everyone else that are RIT faithful. But those two groups, it just makes it special. It makes it fun for the players. It's makes it exciting. They like to play in the rink. Unfortunately, I think the opposing team likes it too. So it was quite an adjustment when we came in. So this is our 10th year in our new rink, and it was an adjustment because teams came in here pumped up to play in a great environment, and you always want to make your rink your home rink. And our old rink, the Ritter, was about 10 feet shorter than normal, so we kind of gain a little bit of advantage. The stands are right on top of you. The rink itself, the locker room, which people probably think we crank the heat, it's just where the hot water pipes for the whole university went through that locker room, and that's the one, that's the only one we had. So it was hot. So for visitors, it was miserable going into that rink. And then we get the new rink, and we made it all nice and comfy, cozy for all our opponents. Nice visiting locker room. They walk right onto the bench. Everything was good. But the first couple of years, I don't know what our record was, but it wasn't great at home. Maybe it was 500 or maybe it was below, but it took us a while to really kind of learn to adopt our rink as a home rink and make it uncomfortable for others. But we had to do it more with our play than the other circumstances, I guess.
Yeah, the atmospheres in college and everything that comes with it, I think is something special. It kind of reminds me of the German hockey over here, the atmosphere, the soccer atmosphere that the Europeans love. You've been a part of RIT for so long, and I'm just curious, like every year, what types of like players are you looking to recruit? Like, what's the RIT hockey brand you would say of how you want your teams to be?
Yeah, I think we like a skilled player. I mean, I know a lot of people, but we probably cheat on the skill side. Like if I was the GM of Team Canada, it would be Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux. There'd be no penalty killers on that team. Hope, whoever ends up not putting up the points ends up learning how to be a penalty killer. But no, we cheat more on the offensive side. I'd say, as far as the type of recruits, the game is so quick now that you've got to be able to skate. The toughest thing now that I would say is really trying to you learn from the coaches and you get some visual about their competitiveness, but their hockey IQ. That's probably the hardest thing to identify in a player now because of how the game's evolved. Everyone's in great shape, everyone can skate. Before that, best player used to dominate because he was faster than most of the other guys. He just had the puck the whole time. Now, with video and all that, they kind of get eliminated a little bit, as we talked about with the creative people. So you're looking at a little bit more power play. How, what are they seeing on the power play? What's their IQ really like? And it's just tougher that way. But we like that style of player, and because it's so difficult to score in today's game. People packing it in. The goalies are so much more talented. They're bigger and just better and athletic. And I think you can never have enough goal scorers. And I guess you can do it the other way and try and win those 1-0 games, but we prefer to coach a 5-4 game to don't grimace on that when I say that, but like, we're just that's our style and we know that, and we work on the other part of it for sure. But that's what we got coming in, and then we try and switch that a little bit.
So you got goalies for, right? They got to keep the puck out of
Yeah,
the
that's
net.
they're wearing the pad. Stop the puck.
Easy job. Two more for you because you've been very generous with your time here. Um, as you know, like the new rule has kind of been announced there with the eligibility, and I was just kind of curious, like, what's your take on it? Like, how you think it'll change the NCAA game, and if that's something that you're looking forward to, interested to see how it goes, or you're maybe not a fan of.
Well, I think anyone that's not professional deserves an opportunity to play. I think the easy knock some people have on the CHL is that they're not good students, but I think in our short experience already, there's some outstanding students there. That's not the case. I think that you could say the same thing about a lot of the players that we were getting out of, the tier two loop or the OJ and things like that. Everyone's the same there, and it's just going to be different. But the players that are coming in are going to be probably the same age that we're bringing them in right now. At least at what we're recruiting, and a lot of other teams are recruiting. Maybe some of the bigger schools, the Michigans and Boston colleges, are still looking for those 17-year-olds, but they're getting first rounders that are need to be challenged at the next level, which I think colleges maybe a step up on the CHL. Not that's a blanket statement, but I'm just saying a little bit older, a lot of good players there too, but physically prepare these young first rounders for pro hockey, playing against older guys versus playing against some of the younger guys that could get overwhelmed by some of them. So I don't have a problem with it. It just creates a little bit of havoc, but our experience so far with everyone involved, the CHL GMs and coaches has been very positive. So they want the elite 15 to 18-year-old. I think at the draft, I think as the collective bargaining comes up, I think the NHL will have more say where they want their players to go, whether it be to stay in the CHL, whether it be move on to college, or whether they want them in the American League. I can see that happening too. So I think they're going to have a much bigger influence on where their top draft picks are going to play, and the flexibility that it's going to give them to to do that will be interesting as we move along and see where this path takes us.
Yeah, I think it definitely, for the players that maybe are late developers who might make, and nowadays would have made the mistake of going major junior and then it didn't work out, it kind of gives them a chance to maybe play a couple more years in that. And then, as you mentioned, the guys who excel early and want to go to college after and play against the older age group, then it's the next level for them, kind of what you brought up in like an older league. So I'm curious how it's going to work out. And obviously, it's more players for schools like yourself to be able to recruit now. So,
Yeah.
more the better.
Right. I think, yeah, it's going to be interesting how it all evolves here. There's a lot of speculation on things, but I guess as we're going through this, and we'll have to see how these players do as well. I think in the CHL, because they have to do it at such a young age, there's some kids that are pretty developed at a young age that never really do progress. And for their part, now the CHL can take a player that was a late developer, bring him into their system, and he can still go off to college afterwards. So there's a lot of different things, dynamics that are going to happen here.
Yeah, no, for sure. Last one here. I always like to end on this one. What is one piece of advice or multiple pieces of advice you would give the younger generation out there?
Coaches, are we speaking? Or
Whatever you
yeah,
want.
for me, I had obviously a great experience in college, and I just really want to share that. And when I say share that, uh, have my players have a real good experience. You want them to really just love coming to the rink. Um, that should be the best part of their day. They know they have to do the calculus and some of those other things, but I think if you can instill that they enjoy coming to the rink, being with their teammates, competing hard every day, trying to get better, and then having them try and reach their goals, which obviously is the NHL. And at RIT, we've had a couple of guys be able to move on, not as many as we'd like, but we've had a lot play in the American League. But, just challenge them in every aspect of their life to be better people, better students, and better hockey players, and enjoy the ride getting to what their end goal is. And I think that as a coach, I think we sometimes focus too much on recruiting, which is obviously very important, but I think the coaching aspect is trying to make people better. That's really what our title says, is try and make them better, and trying to figure that out every year is different. As soon as one player leaves and another player comes in, it changes your team every year. So enjoy what you're doing. I went in to be a phys ed teacher, and I guess I'm just teaching one topic, and it's hockey. It's not volleyball and all the other sports, but it's great to be a part of young people's lives that's what they love to do, and you get to try and shape it the best you can possibly do, and that's all you can do.
I tell anyone who goes thinking about going NCAA, it's honestly it's bubble life for 4 years, and it's unreal because it obviously it's not the real world, and then the camaraderie you have with your brothers there on your team and the memories we have. I remember the winter break was always the best. You come back to school, you're there, it's only you and maybe the basketball team, and you're playing hockey and just like spending days together. Like it's honestly awesome. And as you mentioned, like you're training these young men both on the ice and obviously for off the ice after hockey whenever it does end. So a phys ed teacher who only teaches hockey every day. I mean, it's the same sport, so I guess that's the best of both worlds. But I appreciate you taking the time. I hope you enjoyed quickly going down memory lane there, and I thank you again for sharing your thoughts and obviously your influence on the younger generation. And I wish you the best the rest of the season at RIT.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me, and best of luck to you over there. And that's awesome. I really appreciate it.
For those listening, if you guys are ever in the Rochester area and want to go see a game, I recommend going to RIT for the hockey game. The atmosphere is incredible, and obviously the new arena. Um, you should definitely check it out. Give them a follow on Instagram if you want. And until next week, juice and ciao.